The Human Loop podcast, powered by Ethereum. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Human Loop. And in this episode, I am going to be doing a weekly roundup that we like to call the Weekly Loop to keep you up to speed with what has been reported, the research that's come out from the most reputable resources that I can find around the world of human performance, human capital, management, leadership, and the intersection with all of those topics and AI. So this week, we've got 5 stories for you that have been published or released. Story 1 is coming from McKinsey and BCG. And McKinsey found that 88% of companies use AI in at least one function, which is pretty good. It's incredible that actually, you think 88% of businesses are now beginning to embed AI into their workflows and processes rather than just tinkering with it and messing about with ChatGPT. The flip side of that is McKinsey also state that only 39% are seeing any impact on EBIT, so any impact on profit. So 88% of businesses are using AI in at least one of their functions, but 39%, only 39% are seeing an impact on bottom line. And when they do, that impact is typically less than a 5% benefit. So there's a lot of work to do there in terms of how we can make the best use and find those use cases as leaders in our organizations for AI and how we can utilize that really effectively. BCG goes Boston Consulting Group, for those who don't know what BCG stands for, goes in harder. And they have published that from their findings, 60% of companies generate zero material value from AI investments, despite a significant spend. So that's crazy. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money being invested for zero material value. And they agree that 5% creates substantial value at scale. And there have been stories like JP Morgan are kind of one of the poster children for the utilization of AI and the benefits they've seen. I think it was a $2 billion ROI recently on their 2-year experiments in the field of AI integration within their businesses. So, what does this mean? Well, we've got a dramatic increase in businesses using AI tools in the flow of their work, but less than 40% are seeing an impact on that. So McKinsey and BCG agreeing each other there. And what does this mean? It means that organizations are treating AI as a tool to bolt on to processes rather than fundamentally redesigning how work actually gets done. That's what I'm getting from this. So again, the gap isn't technology. We've got the technology. It's actually that this is brand new technology. And do we at an organizational level understand how to redesign our workflows to really see those returns? So there's a lot here about human redesigning of work, of processes, of skilling our people to make the most of this. So a lot of work to be done there. Story 2 is from Gallup. So Gallup have launched an update of their state of global workforce. And they've seen that global employee engagement has fallen from 23%, that's engagement, from 23% to 21%. But when you look into that a bit further, the real story here is that management engagement has collapsed by 3%. So manager engagement, this isn't disengagement, this is engagement, fell from 30% to 27%, with female managers taking the hardest hit. So female managers dropped by 7 percentage points, and managers under 35 fell by 5 percentage points. So the kicker is that actually there's some really specific groups within your organization who, if I was running a large organization and I've got a finite amount of resources, where am I gonna focus those resources to get the biggest bang for my buck? Well, we need to look at employee engagement. Like that's obvious. And I know a lot of organizations, HR directors that I speak to on a weekly basis are really focusing on employee engagement and understanding how they can make sure that their employees feel like they're doing meaningful work that matters. But if we zoom in a bit more, it's really clear that the kind of the bit that needs plugging and looking at first is this manager engagement, all right? And specifically female managers and managers under 35. So for those of you who are planning their 2026 L&D leadership development strategies and the tactics you're going to deploy, I would really urge you to look at the resources that we'll put at the bottom of the show notes and read into which of the discrete groups that we probably need to pay some more attention to find out how we can unlock the potential within those management groups, because we know if we can support those managers, they will be better at supporting their people. So there's a key there. And this ties into like burning people out. Like actually we have a responsibility, I believe, to make sure that our people understand the mission, vision and values of our organizations. And then below that, they really understand that they're doing meaningful work that matters. And if we're not able to do that effectively, then I think the cultural health of our organization will continue to deteriorate, and that will have an impact on bottom line performance. So if you want to zoom out, like the cost of global disengagement is estimated to be about $438 billion in lost productivity. That was in 2024 when those engagement numbers were better. They're worse now. So I think it's going to be really interesting when Gallup produced their State of the Workplace survey, which will probably come out Q1 next year, to see actually what's changed this year, because I think it's been a pretty tough year for the majority of us in business. Story 3 comes from DHR and their Global Workforce Trends Report, which is about burnout. There's a lot here about burnout and disengagement. So 83% of workers that they surveyed reported feeling burned out to some degree. It was consistent with levels across 24 and 25. But the change is that burnout's impact on engagement. So you've got these measures here that different businesses are looking at. And there used to be not such a tight correlation, shall we say, between burnout and engagement. But actually, what they noticed is that burnout's impact on engagement jumped from 34% in 2024 to 52% in 2025. Now, I imagine there's something there about long-term burnout and how there are more demands in an ever-changing world on all of us as leaders, team leaders, C-suite leaders, employees within organizations. There are just more demands on us from a home life perspective. There's a lot going on in the macro economy and the geopolitical situations. And then there's a real need for all of us to be, pointing in the same direction within our organizations to really make sure that we can do more with less resources. And I think you can compound that over time, and you're going to end up with a situation where actually what might be short-term acute stress becomes acute burnout. And now what I think we're playing out is longer-term chronic burnout, which we know from all the research around stress, fatigue, and human performance. Long-term burnout limits creativity, limits collaboration potential. And so if we limit those two things, that's going to have a massive impact on the ability for your business, or for your teams, your people, and your business to be able to have a competitive advantage in your marketplace and really capture the opportunity in your marketplace. So there's some work to do there for sure. What else they say? That entry-level employees and associates are getting crushed. They're pretty hard with their words. 62% and 61% respectively report reduced engagement due to burnout, compared to just 38% of C-suite leaders. So that's again, there's this perception, I guess, that it's really, really hard for managers and leaders right now, and it is. But their data says that entry-level employees, 62% are reporting reduced engagement due to burnout. Now, that's really interesting. Do we have C-suite leaders who are just not reporting burnout because they are more focused, or they've got more skin in the game in their organization, so they don't feel that burnout affecting their engagement, whereas earlier stage employees have potentially no share options or less skin in the game, should we say, in the organization, and less resilience because they haven't got the years and reps of working through different economical cycles. There's a story there as well, but I think the key takeaway here is that we've got low engagement caused more and more by what it seems like a longer period of burnout. So what's the call to action here? The call to action here for all of us is 2026. I believe we are going to need to invest in understanding what is causing our people to burn out within our organizations, and using the resources we've got to try and address that. Like, is that new patterns of working? Is that, how do we actually use AI in the flow of our work to address people's burnout? So actually the story about, the scare of AI automation replacing all of us, I think that plays into that burnout narrative a little bit. But we have a huge opportunity here with the array of AI enabled, AI native tools coming to the marketplace, I think to really help with this burnout crisis that we're facing. Story 4 is about the AI training gap. So basically saying that 1 in 4 organizations, this comes from SHRM and their 2025 talent trends. And this basically says that 1 in 4 organizations now use AI to support HR activities, and 45% of US workers reporting using AI in their jobs. I wonder whether they're using AI tools that have been through procurement, through their information governance process, or whether actually they're reporting there that they use ChatGPT in their day-to-day tasks. So that's an interesting bit there. 1 in 4 organizations now use AI to support HR activities. I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? I think if we can use AI anywhere to help people, I think AI, for me, it's a multiplier. It's an accelerator of what we can do as individuals within an organization and functional units. And if there is one place where someone needs an answer to a question about benefits, about human resources processes, instead of having to wait for potentially an email back from someone in HR, if we can build a knowledge bank and train a model on that sort of information and make it readily accessible for our people, then I think actually we can avoid a lot of delays and worries and questions about what's really important to people. And what's really important to people ultimately is how HR policies impact their day-to-day lives. So if we can do that really rapidly, I think that's a massive win. Meanwhile, 75% it states of these same HR professionals agree that AI will increase the importance of human judgment over the next 5 years. So that's really interesting. 75% of HR professionals say they want to keep their jobs. I mean, that makes sense. I would report the same. But I do think there is this human in the loop narrative that keeps coming back around, that there's a need and a desire to automate the lower value, less human relevant tasks we can in all of our workflows, whilst maintaining the human judgment, the human interaction piece. And I think we're going to see an awful lot of that perpetuate in the coming months and years as we begin to interface more with AI in our day-to-day roles. The last story comes from Korn Ferry. It's about leaders believing they've got an AI strategy. So this is this disconnect between leaders saying, we've got an AI strategy, we have it nailed, we know what we're going to do, and then employees. And so on one hand, you've got leaders saying 70% of leaders surveyed globally say we've got an AI strategy. Only 39% of employees believe that their leaders have an AI strategy. So that's pretty scary. We need to fix that disconnect. So that's a 31% kind of perception gap. And perception in business internally, I've seen time and time again, it is everything. So the call to action there is leadership is making announcements about AI, and employees are hearing threats or gaps or differences that need to be repaired. So what's the connecting thread that wraps all of these 5 articles together? It's that organizations are beginning to throw tools and technology at fundamental gaps within their organizations. One of the core things that's being missed is a real clarity of communication to employees about, like, what does this mean for their role? How can it help them in terms of reducing the amount of overwhelm that they're experiencing and the burnout that they're experiencing, to be able to begin to reverse that downward trend in engagement. And for me, that's the key message today. The key message today is a lot of the research that I'm reading and listening to and reflecting on is engagement is still going down. So we've got AI coming into our workflows that should be designed and is designed to make our businesses more effective and more efficient. At the moment, we haven't been able to bottom out that employee engagement. So there is a lot more to do. And what I want everyone to think about, if they can take one thing away from this update, is that's got to be your focus. Like, in 2026, how can we support our employees to understand that they're doing meaningful work that matters and reward them in the right way, whilst creating a working environment that enables them to rest as well as perform. This is the Weekly Loop. Thank you so much again for tuning in to the Human Loop podcast. I will continue to do these as we get more and more feedback from you all. So thanks for listening, and catch you again next time.